welcome to another conversation. And well, I say a conversation. I'm obviously doing the talking bit of it, but so projection. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Projection, because obviously it's something that people talk about quite a lot, but really and truly, we probably exist in projection so much that in some ways we need to just assume that everything we're seeing at some level is a projection. So, because until we're completely clear, until we are all that is, and have the experience of we are all that is, because really I think most people are really under the illusion of the separation of us, that that we're separate people and those other people are separate people and they're doing things that we're seeing that they're definitely doing. So until really, I would say, I've said this before, but I would say that there's kind of four often stages which people experience of. First of all, most people will be in a kind of state of the victim where they'll see that everything's happening to them. They think life happens to them, that this, it's just life. This person's done something, it just happened. It always happens to me. All of those sorts of things that you hear around, that I don't know why it's happened, but it's just life, it's Sod's law, it's this, it's that, all those things. And then people can start to recognize that they can make things happen. So they will think, right, I can make something happen. So then things are happening because of them. So they'll create whatever it might be, a success in sport, a business, a relationship, and things are happening because of them. But it's still quite driven by that separateness, and it's quite the mind, and it's quite adrenaline fueled. And then as you recognize more and more the truth of who you are, as you're more in touch, and all of you here are more in touch with that essence, with the limitless potential, the source, the stillness, the quiet, the recognition of the endless you, the face before you were born, the you that was never born and never dies. The more you're in touch with that, you start to see things happening through you, and things are happening through your inner world. They're happening through your landscape. You recognize it's to do with your subconscious mind, to do with your inner workings, that everything on the screen of life is something to do with you. And then of course, as you evolve completely into oneness and recognize that we are all that is, we are all one, we are all connected, then we are everything. Then there is it's a very different experience, and there wouldn't be projection in that state. But I would suggest that essentially, at some level, consider that if everything is something to do with your projection, and as I said, from moving from the life's happening because of me into life's happening through me, there's an acceptance in when things are happening through us, that this reflection in the outer world is something to do with my inner state. In that case, you wouldn't therefore be projecting onto the thing in front of you. You would be more reflecting of what's that to do with me. But let's come back to projection, given I've said this is about projection. Now, that's just a sort of background. So if we assume that everything that you're seeing, everything you're responding to, is going to be at some level through the filter of your own mind, through the filter of your past experience, through the filter of your conditioning, through the filter of your experiences to date. If you go from that position, you're more able to be aware, and more able to therefore press pause and ask the question, is this true? Is it really true? What I'm seeing, what I'm putting onto this situation? And of course, this is where reactivity comes into it as well, because really and truly that, people are reacting often more than they realise. They're, getting a bit irritated by, the queue being too long, or by somebody taking, longer than they said to get back to them, or all sorts of daily life things, people not turning up on time, workmen, work people not turning up on time, whatever. And there's a natural response to get irritated. So, of course, even that's all a projection, because we're immediately, if you're irritated, you're projecting your own deeper inner wounding onto the situation in front of you. So you will perhaps project that the irritation could come from the conditioning that, to be a good person, you have to turn up on time. It can come from the wounding of I'm not important. If they, knew who I was, but if they were valuing you, they turn up on time. So therefore, that's a projection coming from the wound. All of it is going to be coming from projection, which is why the clearing is of the essence. And the clearing is something, obviously, that I teach all the time and encourage all the time. And, it is 24/7, being aware that if we are aware enough, present enough to notice when our energy changes, when we do react, and we absolutely always press pause on that feeling that's come up in the body. We take a big deep breath into the tummy. It doesn't have to be very noticeable, or we put our hand on our body just where we are feeling, the tension rising, and we press pause, and we do not react or act out of that feeling. We go a long way to starting to be present, and therefore not project our own pain onto the situation, our own beliefs onto, because some of it, as I say, it's not always the wounding. It can be our beliefs, it can be our conditioning, it can be all manner of things. So therefore, at the base level, it is recognizing that the reactivity work, as always, is the essence of it. It's the hub of everything. If at the very core of our being, we know that the clearing work will inform everything, because as we keep being mindful to notice if we get tense, if we feel reactive, if we feel the energy change, if we're doing that, that's at the core of it, then we're going to be the ones that know if we're projecting or not. So projection, it is really, simply put, putting our thoughts and feelings or our aspects of ourselves that are hidden away, that we don't like or do like, but we haven't accessed them, we project them onto what's in front of us. So sometimes, it can be consciously done, and sometimes it's unconscious. Probably more often than not, it's unconsciously done. And as I say, from the simplest level, it can come just from steeped in the conditioning of our societal teachings. I think society, which obviously deep down goes into school, into family, into teams, sports, church groups, all of those conditionings get so ingrained in people that there will be some standard things that go on in all manner of life. For instance, let's think of some simple examples. If somebody has had a baby, or they get pregnant, generally people go, oh, that's marvellous, how wonderful. And if somebody's going to get married, they go, oh, that's brilliant, what amazing news. If somebody's getting divorced, they go, oh, I'm so sorry. If somebody dies, the people go, oh no, and that's terrible. Now, the thing is, we don't actually know whether the person getting pregnant really wants to have a baby, whether when somebody's had a baby, they're having a good time or not. Sometimes people find that, they're not bonding with the baby, things aren't going well. They suddenly feel overwhelmingly trapped. I mean, I've obviously had the privilege to spend 40 plus years talking with people who are in a position where they can tell me what they really feel. Sometimes when people, are getting married, I've had people get married who knew they didn't want to get married, were actually involved with someone else, but they couldn't get out of the marriage. They got married on their wedding day, knowing they didn't want to get married. Everybody's going, it's so marvellous. And they were in this terrible pickle. And yet, of course, they couldn't really tell anybody, except me, because of societal expectations. They couldn't even get out. They couldn't even talk to their parents and say, I've got to get out because, the parents have paid a lot of money, all these things. People have, died. Sometimes people have felt very relieved when a certain person's died because, of the relationship wasn't good, but they can't tell anybody that. And they go around with people projecting onto them all the time, all the normal statements of, oh, how terrible, I'm so sorry, and all of these things. Now, of course, there are times when people are joyous about their baby, their marriage, they're very sad about their divorce or their loss, but sometimes people are, are very the opposite. And obviously for us not to project, we have to kind of be mindful in every situation when we meet anybody, rather than just project what we think it will be. People assume that if someone's gone to a sunny place to have a holiday, oh, was it wonderful? Was it amazing? Did you have a wonderful time? Rather than really, that's a projection. It is a projection. It's an immediate projection. Now, of course, that's not done with ill intent, but it is coming from the projection of all of the levels of, conditioning. Whereas actually, if we're more intentional and we more ask the question, just simply ask, how was your time away? Was your time away as you hoped? Did your time away live up to any of your hopes or dreams, or were there any things about your time away which were not so good? Were there things about your time away that were wonderful? You ask those questions that allow people to tell you about their experience, rather than projecting your thoughts onto them or your ideas. Now, of course, as I say, it's often done with great good intention, but what it actually does is it doesn't allow for what we were talking about last time, for really relational dialogue, where people are actually meeting the person in front of them and finding out about them and who they are and what's gone on for them. And that's where intentional dialogue comes in, rather than projection. So that's just daily life, being mindful all the time of not assuming that somebody else is going to feel the same as you, not assuming that if it's sunny, everybody's going to want to go outside. That's a very common one, that people go, oh, I hope you've got outside. People say that to me quite often. I don't really bother whether I go outside or not in the sun because I just, I like being in a sunny environment. I enjoyed being in Spain, but I'm not necessarily an outdoor type that has to be outdoors all the time. But that is often projected onto me because I go running and because I, do the thing I do, that it's often projected that, oh, I hope you got outside in the sun today. And I'm like, no, but I don't mind. So do be aware. It's a really interesting thing. Not with me, by the way. All of you be going, oh God, have I said that to Julia? Because I don't mind. I just notice it. I just notice that people will project what they like onto another person. So, all manner of things, whether it's around, celebrations or Christmases or all sorts of things. It's quite a fun exercise to start to do in your own daily life, noticing where you're projecting. Just notice it. Notice that. Just assume you are. That's one of the good places to start. Just think, okay, I'm assuming that I'm seeing everything through the filter of my own map, because, as I said, really and truly, we need to go back to the hub of it all, which is clearing reactivity. That will be an arrow to a lot of our early childhood adaptations from the things that went on that meant that we internalize things, whether we weren't loved as we needed to be loved, we weren't seen, we weren't heard. So all of those reactivities can come out, which again will be projections onto what somebody in front of us has said. So I'll cover that a bit more in a minute, but then it will be all the conditionings of what our family and our school and everybody kind of imprinted into us. So if we do a little bit of work, or a lot of work, like most of you who've done here, on our map, our paradigm, and we start to investigate what are our adaptations, what are our reactivities, but also what are our beliefs. Where did I get that belief? Lots of people have all manner of beliefs from childhood, like it's not a good thing to rest, or being driven to make money isn't, we should be trying to improve ourselves. There's all manner of things to investigate. What were the family kind of stories that we grew up in, that we may have internalized, that we might be somebody who really enjoys having a nice restful time in between things, but we always think we've got to keep busy because we've been told that. And then we can then project that. If we see somebody else being a bit more chilled, we can project onto them that that's not a good thing. So again, it comes from any disowned parts of ourselves where we were told we shouldn't wear our heart on our sleeve, we shouldn't share our things with other people. Then we'll meet someone who's always sharing what they feel, and it can create an irritation in somebody and think, oh, they're always just seeking attention or something. Well, that's often a projection from your own unexpressed or not allowed to express what you feel. So that's why the reactivity is very key, because if you do feel reactive to a person in front of you, often it can be that they're either living out of disowned part of yourself, so you'll project onto them that it's not a good thing, or they will hit a button in you that you feel upset, and you'll make it that they're not very nice, that what they've done is the wrong thing, whereas actually what you're projecting is that you've probably heard something different. So they may say something, I can't think of a quick thing that is simple, because sometimes people will say something like, yes, it's a simple one, you're always late, and kind of laugh, but you could take it very, very personally, because perhaps you are always late, but what you've heard is you're a bad person, you're somehow, somehow you're not liked. So it's what you're hearing is what gets projected onto the person in front. People will say all manner of things, and you'll hear, you might hear somehow that you're wrong. They might say, that they like to do things a certain way, and you'll project that they're telling you that the way you do it's wrong, because you might say, oh, I like to, get up at 9, I like to go to bed at 3, but I get my best work done then. And they'll go, oh goodness, I could never do that. I get up at 5:30, and I like to have done yoga and meditation and running all before you get up at the late time. And you can hear that they're telling you that you're a bad person, so you'll project something onto them, whereas actually they may be just saying what they do. So that's where the reactivity is so key with projection, because if you're reacting, you're probably not seeing things as they are. You're coming from the past, you're coming from something, you're definitely not in the present. You probably can be up to 90% in the past. You'll be projecting something from your history onto the situation in front. So don't trust it. Never trust anything when you're reacting. Just assume that you're not seeing clearly, and that whatever you convince yourself, then I'm just going to have a drink of water. Whatever you convince yourself isn't going to be the truth. The thing with projection is it is you absolutely know. I remember I've worked with people who, something had happened, the boyfriend hadn't responded to the text, That's quite a common one. People don't respond to text quick enough, often when it's in the dating kind of thing, and the person knows what's going on. I've talked to so many people, and they'll go, well, I know he's not interested, and I know he's not this, and I know he isn't this because he didn't reply, and he did this, and I know this, and I know that. And I go, how do you know that? They go, I do know. I just know because he didn't reply to my text for 2 hours. And I say, you don't know that. And then a really good thing that by Byron Katie, she does a practice which you ask, is that true? And then you go, well, I think it's true. And then you go, no, is it really true? And you go, well, of course, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. And then you go, well, what would I be like without that thought? And then you go, well, I'd be okay, because you're back in the present. And without that thought, all that's happened is you didn't get a text, but you haven't got any story around it. You're not projecting onto the situation anything. And then something she always suggests is you turn it around and go, okay, well, maybe I'm not interested. And then you go, well, that's not true either. So that's quite a good exercise to help with projection. Projection feels real. When you're projecting onto somebody, it feels real because it is coming through the filter of your mind. It's very powerful. And especially if it's touched a wound. So if somebody's, I don't know, being a little bit offhand, and, we don't know why people are offhand, but you're at work and somebody isn't quite as friendly, they're not quite paying the same attention, and they're upset with you, you know it, and you absolutely know that, then you might make up, oh, I remember, it's because I didn't bring them a croissant, I brought everyone else a croissant yesterday, I know that's what it is. And people make up incredible stories in their head, you probably would believe, unbelievable stories that have come because somebody's been slightly off. And it's actually, when you drill into it, it's reminded them of the time where their mother wasn't, properly present because she was, perhaps something had gone on in her own life. And, I know this with clients I've worked with where the mother has, lost a parent, and then they've been grieving, but then they haven't been as present with their children. And they can feel they've done something wrong, or they can feel that they're, it's something to do with them, and then that can go on in life. So if someone is not quite present, just because of whatever people are not quite present for, because they've got their own thing going on, people project, oh, I know what it is, and I've done this, and she's all like this. And it's something that's really important to be so super mindful of. I realise I've got to stop. I hope I've made sense, because this subject obviously can go into so many arenas, but essentially bringing it back then to the core of it is to recognise that all the time you're still working with your humanness and attachment to the identification of the body, the mind, all of the kind of roles that you play. And that's just a process. I mean, it's to let go and really recognise the truth of who you are. It takes a time. Now, obviously it doesn't take time, because when you let go, it happens now. Osho always said that, it happens now. But the now, it's noticing it in every moment where you just recognise who you are. But then usually you pick up the baggage of the karma until it's gone. So recognising that at the core of it, until you absolutely really are in your essence to such a degree that you see yourself as part of all that is, or experience yourself. It isn't seeing, experience yourself. Assume you're projecting. So that's the core thing. Assume there's a level of projection going on, because there can't not be, really, because that's how our projection and perception is how we're in this life and our experiences, and we need to be available to expand. And that's why, therefore, expanding through every single conversation we have rather than projecting means we grow and grow and grow, because in every conversation we have the potential for expansion or limitation, and we have the potential to project onto somebody or stay in our center and communicate with them and ask questions that open them to completely communicate who they are to you, and then the space between you is abundant and it grows and it multiplies. So therefore think in terms of using circular questioning rather than closed questions, open questions in all of your dialogues. Every time you think you know something, go, well, I'm making it up. I've said this to lots of you when you're working with me. When you think you know something, you may be making it up accurately. You know, there's obviously intuition as well. There's kind of awareness, there's knowing a person. I'm not saying everything's projection, but if we think something's going on and we haven't absolutely, solidified it as such, just say, well, I'm making up that this is going on. Recognize there may be a process of your own to go through, because we do make things up accurately and we do see things in other people and we are observant. So it's not denying everything you see, but just going from that position means you're more fluid. Then using the Bar and Katie practice is really useful. If you really think something's true, really loosen it up a bit. Is it true? Is it really true? What would I feel like without that thought? Let's turn that around. And really work with clearing. I will always say that, won't I? Always, when you react, really press that pause button and recognize that if you clear what the energy that's going on, you don't act out of it, you transform your life. And that's it. So obviously I could chat on, but I will stop for now. And thank you for joining me. As always, I've absolutely loved it.